Now that we have some basic animation on our scene, let's take a look at how we can manipulate it and refine it. I'm going to hit increment and save first, as we should be doing regularly with every big change. And I'm going to shorten how many available frames we have from 250 to 200 by just typing it down below. And I'm going to change how many visible frames we have on the timeline from all 200 being visible to just about 50 being visible. So I'm going to grab this guy right here and I'm going to slide this down all the way to 50. There we go. Now we are going to use something called the Graft Editor. This is one of the major editors in Maya that is used by pretty much every 3D editor. We can go up to Windows, Animation Editors, Graft Editor, which opens it up in a separate window, or we can just change our workspace from General down to Animation. Now that just opened up the graph editor and docked it nicely right above the timeline. So now we can take a look at our animation that we have and see what it looks like in the graph editor. Now, the graph editor is going to be your best friend when it comes to animation. What we have is a representation of time inside of a graph. This representation of time or change in time is called interpolation. Now you can navigate in the graph editor the same as you do in the viewport by panning in and out, panning back and forth. The only difference is that you can scale your view by holding Shift Alt and using your right mouse button to scale it on the horizontal or scale it on the vertical. So Shift Alt is for PC and Command Shift is Mac. Now, these orange diamonds represent our keyframes. And these lines in between them are basically saying this is the change from point A to point B to point C to point D, and how the ball is traveling along in time and how those values are changing. So let's select this keyframe on the y-axis. If we look over here in this little menu that kind of looks like the outliner, we can see we have the Translate Y selected, indicated by this little green square. If we select something else, this will change. So we have Translate Y selected. And if we go back into our viewport, we can see that Translate Y is green. So there's a direct correlation between the Translate Y in the viewport and the Translate Y in the graph editor. So this is a direct correlation. We can actually manipulate the keyframes that we have made from the graph editor. So you can just click and drag this up and down. This is changing the value of my keyframe. The value of the object on the y-axis is going to change because I am changing the interpolation of it in the graph editor. And I could do the same in my viewport. So now you can see that they are the same things, and I have the exact same amount of control of my objects in keyframes from both the viewport and the graph editor. Now let's make some changes. If we scrub through our animation, we can see there's a major issue happening here. Our ball is crashing through the edge. So let's select all of our keyframes. I'm going to hold Shift and select all of my keyframes. And let's move them all down 2 keyframes. So 1, 2. So now our first keyframe is on frame 8. Let's go back to frame 6 and key our translation. So Shift W. You can see that added a new first keyframe, both in the timeline and the graph editor. Now we're going to go back to our second keyframe on frame 8, and I am going to move the ball, let's see here, over a bit. I can either do this in the viewport, like so, or I can use the graph editor. I just come to translate X in the graph editor, I can change the interpolation of it and bring the ball closer to the edge. So that looks good. Let's check this out. So now we have it sitting here on frame 6, then it slowly comes to the edge on frame 8, and now it's falling down. So that fixed our issue. We do have another little issue really quickly where I moved it on the Y a little too much. Now it's clipping into the ledge, so let's move that back up. Let's make sure we're in frame 6. I can either do this in my viewport like so, or I can do it in the graph editor as well. Let me move it up, hit select W on my keyboard, or Shift W on my keyboard, and I can do the same here, Shift W. So now let's see, there we go. So now our ball is rolling to the edge, and then it eventually rolls off. So that solved our first issue. Let's watch our animation and see what else we can change. So if I push play, it feels kind of soft, if that makes any sense. Stop this, and let's just scrub through it. It seems to slow down just as it's about to hit the ground, which isn't how physics work in real life, right? It's kind of going fast here, and then it slows down right about here. So let's make this more realistic. And we can change that type of speed through the graph editor as well. So let's go back to the graph editor. And we don't want to affect any of the axes down here except for the Y axis. So let's do translate Y so we can figure out what the culprit is. We can see visually that indeed the ball starts to slow down right around here. So it starts out slow up here, and then as it's following this ramp, it's speeding up, it's changing its value quickly over a short amount of time, and then it slows down right around here. Now, this graph editor, this concept may be foreign to you at first, but it's something that you just need to become comfortable with understanding, seeing motion represented in a graph form. So we have it going fast here, then it starts to slow down. See how it kind of gets flat here? If it was totally flat, the ball wouldn't move at all. I can show you right here. We can see that in these two first keyframes. See how it's totally flat? The ball is moving, but not in the Y translation. It's staying totally even in the Y direction. So if this is flat, we know that it's not going anywhere. If it's very steep, we know it's going somewhere fast. So when it starts to flatten back out, we know it's slowing down here again. So the solution is we need to maintain the speed all the way through from this keyframe to this keyframe. Let's think about real life physics really quickly. An object doesn't know that it is falling. So when it is approaching the ground, is the object going to slow down, or is it going to keep going at the same speed? Well, it's not going to slow down. It's going to keep going the same speed because it doesn't know that it's coming close to the ground. It doesn't have a brain. There would be no slowing down. So even though the computer is trying to help us here by interpolating between these two keyframes, it doesn't understand that we are animating or the context of our animation. So it's always up to the animator to control all of these things at the end of the day. So how do we fix this? Well, let's select this keyframe. You can see we get these handles. And if we select one, we can change the direction here. You can see it better if we move to a frame in the middle somewhere, like right around here. You can see that there is a big change happening to the ball. But when we move one handle, it's affecting the speed on the other side as well, and we don't want that. We need to break this somehow so that we can keep this line straight and not affect the other side. So we need to break these tangents. And that is this little button right here that looks like a V. When we click that, our handles go from solid lines to dotted lines. And that means they are now detached from each other. So if I click this one and move it, it's no longer affecting the other side. Let's change the speed of the ball in its first fall. And let's change the other side as well after it's hit the floor and begun its bounce. So let's do this one first. Let's make this look a little sharper. That is going to mean it's maintaining its speed all the way till it hits the ground right here. But when it hits the ground and bounces back up, it's going to have a kind of recoil here and bounce back up. And I can go ahead and do that to this other side as well, like so. So let's look at this. Rolling, rolling, hitting the ground, bouncing back up. There we go. Let's refine all of our keyframes with our tangent handles in the same way. So let's select this one, break it, and let's change it so everything's a little bit linear, like so. Let's select this one, break it. And this part is fun because this is just you getting the opportunity to mess around and visually choose what looks best. All right, much better. So now you can see we have a speed going down, we have this nice bounce, and it comes back down and hits the ground. The other thing we can change real quick is to look at the Translate X. We can see that it has an inconsistent kind of speed, but the ball will be traveling on this axis at the same speed. It's not going to speed up as it's moving this way. It's going to be speeding up as it's going down along the y axis. So we don't need a change of speed in the x axis. So let's get rid of these keyframes. I'm going to select them, I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to delete them for Translate X for now. And let's make this line linear. Instead of trying to eyeball it by hand, by trying to select the tangent, break it, move it by hand like this, let's use a shortcut to make this linear. So right now, the default right here is on auto tangent. These are our little shortcuts up here for our tangent line. Right now it's on auto tangent, meaning it's going to try to make everything smooth, but we want this to be a sharp straight line because we don't want it to slow down at any point. So let's hit the linear tangents button right here, and it's going to straighten out this entire line. So let's watch our animation. All right, much better. We already have an animation that's a little bit more realistic. We have a bouncing ball that looks more like a real bouncing ball in real life. It doesn't slow down when it gets close to the ground, and it's looking pretty good. So in the next part, we're going to continue to refine this animation and make it look better and learn a few more principles of animation in general.